our mics work. Okay, let me see if this. Can we do one?
Hot time. It's okay? It's okay?
That does sound. Shalosh Arva.
5, 6.
Baruch Haba, or esteemed guest, Rabbi Meir Azari, who I have admired for a long time, seeing how your community, or should I say communities, these Daniel centers in Tel Aviv have been growing since I got involved in Jewish life professionally. It is really a great honor to have you here with us, Meir, and we are so impressed that you braved California weather on freeways from the area of the Getty all the way here in a weather like this. That is a go-getter, if there ever was one. So thank you so much for it.
To tell you the truth, I prepared myself to a journey of almost 3 weeks. And my journey takes me always to New York and to Florida and sometimes to Los Angeles. And I'm ending the tour starting tomorrow in Detroit and Chicago, so I prepared the winter stuff. And I didn't expect that I will use it here today, this morning in Los Angeles, and tomorrow I see it's the road was terrible. It's almost 2.5 hours to get from here. I don't know if disaster, but I'm here and it's fun, and I'm so happy that you came here. I really am grateful because I know that rain usually helps people to stay in bed, and I understand that that is not accustomed to rain, such a rain. You're really the brave people that came. So thank you very much. I thought on my way nobody will come. It'll be you and me, and we can talk to God, or maybe, But it's so nice that you are here, and I'm really grateful, and I hope that we'll have an interesting evening. And, well, I'm here.
So, for those of you who don't know what Meir means, Meir is somebody who brings on the light or lights things up. So the weather outside might be frightful, but here it's all delightful. That sounded very Christmassy. So you did bring a light here by coming to us. And speaking of journeys, when I thought how we are, having this conversation, we spoke a little bit about it, and I feel that what came up during our conversation, also what came up when we spent a week in Tel Aviv this summer, was the idea that Jewish history and and Jewish life, begadol on a grand scale and on a small scale is a journey. And I think, very much the way we talk Jewish stories, we talk Jewish stories by framing them as journeys. And sometimes these journeys kind of overlap, and there is a next stage of a journey. So because our community knows you a little bit from me raving about you, but doesn't know your full journey, I'm interested in if you could tell us a little bit about your two journeys. First journey, the journey that every rabbi gets asked. So, how did you get to be where you are, as a rabbi of of a thriving Reform synagogue in Israel, and that is an achievement. So it would be great to find out a little bit about your journey to this point. And I think that every journey is sometimes punctuated by events where you feel like a new journey has begun. And I think for everyone in the Jewish world, both here in Southern California and particularly in Tel Aviv, the journey after October 7th has been a difficult one, and it feels very, very much like a different life, So I was wondering if you could start from the first journey and then tell us a little bit about this difficult journey, and then we can delve in and talk about the second journey some more and see how our journey here has differed from your journey, and how they overlap and how we can support each other on these journeys. How does it sound?
Okay, it sounds great.
Amazing.
Yeah. I will start by say that I grew up in what we call in Israel a secular family, but the background is a Sephardic secular family. The guys, if you can just bring the microphone a little bit up, it will be better. I think people, if you can just make it a little bit stronger. secular family that is rooted in the Sephardic background. So far from the Reform world, the other day in one of my talks, explain in a short way how the road that I did is so big and so different than the regular road of a Reformed Jew or Reformed rabbi. When I grew up in Haifa, my father used to take me to soccer game, what you call here soccer, we call it football in Israel, every Shabbat. And before going to the game, we used to go to our uncle, great uncle, big uncle, uncle of my father. Avram was his name. And it's a traditional Sephardic, custom that you eat or Erev Shabbat or Saturday lunch together. By the way, this is part of the power of the Israeli society. The force, the power of the family, the way that we connect to each other. We eat together, we fight together, but we are there. And whenever we got there, always the table was packed with food, Sephardic food. And my uncle used to sit at the head of the table, and two sides, he had his two wives, Doda Johara and Doda Bukas. From the names, you can understand that this is not a regular typical Israeli names. It's a name that were among the Jewish Arab community, those Jews that grew up in the Arab community. So two wives, because in the days before the state was established, Jewish men from Sephardic origin could marry more than one wife. According to the Turkish and the British mandat, this is, that was okay. Can you imagine to yourself a kid growing up in a house when their great uncle, which for me was like a grandfather because I didn't see a lot my grandfather, this is the house. Johara and Bukas. Usually men in this point laugh and say, wow, what a great life he had. And I said, no, he died before his two wives. And whenever we got there, after he died, the young one always says, Elohim, Elohim, God, God, you took him and you left her for me. And that was really, can you understand the journey that I did by coincidence? My parents wanted to send me to a good school in Haifa. The private school was so expensive, so they sent me to a little back school that somehow belonged to the Reform movement with Rabbi Bob Samuels, you know that. And I was there and I discovered by coincidence the story of Reform Judaism. I started to go by myself, 15 years old, to a synagogue, and I like it. And I decided to be there. And I served in the army as a navigator of a missile ship. And step by step, I entered to the rank of the Reform movement as more active. When I finished my army as a navigator of a missile ship, I decided to go to the rabbinate. And you ask me what made the decision. I think that one major event helped me to make a decision to devote my life not as my brother to the business world, but to, you call it here NGO, life with meaning. I was a very young soldier in the army. We just started, I think I was in the army for a few weeks. And in Shabbat morning, there was a terrorist attack in the entrance to Tel Aviv. Terrorists hijacked a bus on his way from Haifa to Tel Aviv. People were in Shabbat recreation activities. There was a battle in the entrance to Tel Aviv. Many people were killed. And our unit of young soldiers, rookies, we just started, was brought to the scene hours after the dead and the wounded were evacuated. And we got plastic bags. And we were asked to collect the items of the people from the bus. I still remember, and it grows you through the years that are passing. I still remember you call it teddy bear, and the kids' toys for beach. It was like you won't forget it. It makes something in your life, and I think that helped me to make the decision. In that time, that decision was a total crazy decision. You have to understand that I was the sixth or the fifth to enter to the rabbinical school in Israel. When you say Reform Rabbi, nobody understood what you're talking about. And when I came to my father to say that I would like to go to rabbinical school, he said, "What is this?" I said, he tried to explain. I said, "Is anybody earn money as a reformer? I mean, what are you going to do? Who will?" And really, rabbi is a rabbi, with a certain hat, with a certain look, and a certain. What are you going to do? Can you imagine to yourself how my family? I'm talking about my uncles, Sephardic family. It's 9 uncles. How they saw what I did, total lunatic. I went to the Hebrew Union College, of course, before that Haifa University, the Hebrew University, the Hebrew Union College. And while I was 27 years old, I was one of those who did what they call in the Middle East the Young Turkish Revolution. We came to the Reform movement and we said we have to change this movement. This movement is dead, doesn't see the Israeli scene, doesn't understand what is going on in Israel. Our synagogue are 2 Americans. We serve immigrants that came from United States, which is fine, but it doesn't give an answer or any opening to Israelis that, And I was part of that revolution, and I was elected to be the director of the Reform movement in Israel. It's quite crazy. 27 years old kid, never been in America before that. You have to understand how far the journey that I did. And I still remember my first meeting with the leader of the Reform movement then, Rabbi Alex Schindler. We just remember him this week. His memorial outside this week. Alex was a giant, and I was a kid. And Alex was well known in Israel as a friend of Menachem Begin. He was very active in Israel. Everybody, the name was very familiar to Israelis, not like today. Today, ask Israelis to count names of Reform rabbis. Nobody really can count one name. Alex was well known in Israel. And I remember I was shaking. I went to meet him in the King David. Again, first time in the King David in Jerusalem, coming to see the big guy from America. Still remember the conversation in the balcony of the Hebrew Union College, balcony of the King David. It's a beautiful balcony. If you in Jerusalem, go sit there. You'll hear the history talking to you. So many presidents, so many leaders. And I started to tell to Rabbi Schindler that I'm planning to do this, and he said to me, no, Israelis are not going to bite. They're still occupied with immigration, war. Continue to do what the movement did until today. That was the message. I was so... And I think that in that time, something happened to the Reform movement. People start to understand that we need a change and we need to bring our congregations to talk Hebrew and to Israelis. I served 3 years the director of the movement. At a certain point, my wife was forced by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she is a career diplomat, to go abroad. They told her, you did the course, you're a cadet, you don't go, we'll kick you out from the ministry. So by coincidence, instead of going to Africa, she was sent to San Francisco. I had a great time in San Francisco, raising our kids. And at a certain point, Rabbi Dick Hirsch, leading figure in the Reform movement, came to San Francisco. And he said to me at the airport, we met at the airport, he put a key, probably the key of the car, I don't know, a key on the table says, look, this is the key for the first synagogue that was built in Israel is a Reformed synagogue. Beit Daniel that you visit just 2 months ago. Can you imagine to yourself the first synagogue in Israel that was built as a Reformed synagogue was in 91, opened in 91. Until then, people praying in basement and kindergarten, rental apartments. Can you imagine to yourself how far was how big is the failure of our movement? And by the way, the same story was the conservative movement. They didn't understand the potential of Zionism and the power of the kingdom and what Israel will be for the Jewish people. They didn't come. They were not there. And I had to make a decision. I did it, and I'm so happy that we did it. By the way, the endorsement of my wife. I went a year before the family from San Francisco to Tel Aviv, and I had to commute between San Francisco to Tel Aviv a few times that year. It was terrible, but I did it. And we opened Beit Daniel. I had 30 people in the beginning of the journey at Beit Daniel. 30 people, 1 bar mitzvah, 1 wedding. Today, our synagogue has 250 bar mitzvot a year. We have 5 synagogues. You saw part of the rabbis, and we have more than 230, 40 converts every year in our conversion school. We do activities that touch thousands of people because we develop a different concept of what is a synagogue. We serve not just our congregation, but we decided to serve the entire community of the people of Tel Aviv. So I have people that I know for 30 years that are coming to study, sometimes twice a week. They're not members that they will pay for every time that they will come to the synagogue. Those who are doing bar mitzvah doesn't need to be a member of a shul, but probably they will do 1 or 2 bar mitzvot, and then the kids will come for a wedding. And today I do, most of the wedding is bar mitzvah kids that I did like years ago. We opened a network of preschools with the city of Tel Aviv. We serve 22 preschools around the city. We do programs that touch almost every school in Tel Aviv. And the city of Tel Aviv that didn't want us to build a synagogue and fought us until the Supreme Court gave us land to build the guest house that you stay there, a beautiful guest house that hosts your kids when they come to Israel. 20,000 birthright nights are in the guest house out of the 60,000 guests that are staying every year, not the year of the war. The 2 years is terrible years for us. But and the city not just gave us the land, they gave us $2.5 million to support the building of this building because they knew that we can make it. Not just to build the building, but bring the people, build program, and make Jaffa attractive as it is right now. Or used to be until the war, but now things are changing. So this is my journey. It was very rewarding, but I had a very complicated life because of the fact that my wife is a diplomat. I find myself part of my life living apart. My wife and many others will tell you that is a secret of good marriage, but it's not so easy to leave your kid in Moscow or in Ukraine. My wife was the Israeli ambassador to Ukraine, Israeli ambassador to Russia, Israeli ambassador to Poland, and Israeli ambassador until a month ago to Czech Republic, and between deputy director of the ministry. So we had a very intensive life, rewarding, and I'm so happy that I had the privilege not just to serve my community, but to make a decision with my community to serve the Jewish people. And this is one of the secrets of Beit Daniel. We think not just about who we are as a congregation, but what is our role in the Jewish world. And I think this is part of the story that many Reform rabbis, conservative rabbis, Orthodox does not understand. You're not just a rabbi for your community. You have to be part of the story of the Jewish, part of the journey of the Jewish people. And this is why our community, instead of building endowment fund, we built a guest house. Because we understood that we need to give something to the Jewish people. And this is why we host 22 Reform rabbis. Just 2 months ago, one of the rabbis is your rabbi. Because we understood that Reform rabbis sometimes does not understand Israel. And now I'm going back to the October 7. And we have to explain to them that Israel is not what they see just in the media. Israel is a little bit more than that. Life is a little bit more complicated. The conflict in the Middle East is a little bit more complicated. And Israel that they got to know through the Hebrew Union College is not Israel that it's really Israel, because they have a very narrow understanding after being in Israel a year, but a year in Jerusalem, which is like being a year in Cincinnati and not in New York or Los Angeles, or you get a certain perspective about who you are as a Jewish leader. Life at the rabbinate was rewarding. I do an average year 80 to 90 weddings. I do a lot of bar mitzvot, as can you understand, Shiva, Simcha, whatever. I managed to publish books, to be in the media. I love it. I love every second of it. But life as a rabbi in Israel are very complicated. And if I thought until October 7 that life was complicated because I needed to do fundraising, I need to bring the congregation to a point that we can live, life from October 7 became very tough and complicated. You know the story, you know that Israel had many operations and wars. Lebanon, take for example the one in 82, and later I think in Gaza, nobody in Israel even can count how many times we were in and out, and Lebanon in and out, the territories. But October 7 is a different story. Suddenly the Israeli society understood two things. That life is, how should I say, is risky. Can imagine to yourself, we got up at 6 something in the morning. What do you do when you have alarm? I know that you don't know because you're not in that. You run and open television to see what happened. And you move and you get to Al Jazeera or even the Israeli after a few minutes. You see the picture from Gaza. You see the picture from the kibbutzim. You see the picture from Hamas camera. The picture that you got that day later is picture that were organized and clean a little bit. You didn't get the whole picture of what we saw. Can you understand what we saw that day? I think that you saw the picture of a girl that is brought to Gaza. She was full with blood. You know very well what happened to her. And we saw hundreds of pictures like this. The picture from the party, the Nova party. Later they clean it. Hamas, by the way, try to wow, you're vulnerable. You're not Israel with the power, Few people, 6,000 people enter and see what happened. So this is one story. The second story, which broke my heart, is the fact that there is a strong camp in Israel, big camp in Israel. I think it's a majority, but we never won the election, or we never formed a real government that is stuck to this issue since 20-some years ago, since the decision of Arik Sharon to get out from Gaza, that wanted peace and was ready to give so much for peace, and you see the picture. You discover that your enemies or your neighbors are not just enemies. What can I tell you? Well, when you see pictures like this, it's not just I don't like the picture, disgust me. You understand that you deal, I don't want to say the word animals, but this is what many Israelis will feel. I'll give you an example. Every person from the peace camp in Israel met a woman by the name Vivian Silver. I don't know if this name says something to you. Vivian Silver, a woman from Canada, made Aliyah to Israel. live in a kibbutz next to Gaza, and she was peace activist in her late 70s, I think. She used to come quite often to the border to pick up Palestinian kids from Gaza, take them to a hospital in Jerusalem for cancer treatment. By the way, can you show me another state in the world that during a wartime or take kids from the other side to a hospital to give a treatment? I don't know about you or any other country taking, for example, from Vietnam, people to treat, We did that. She did that. She was massacred, and it took the physicians 3 weeks to identify her body. Can you imagine to yourself what they did to that lady in her late 70s? Why? For many Israelis, what happened in October 7 is, I don't know to say the dead of the peace dream, but the peace dream that we had was wounded dramatically. And you hear a lot from the young generation. You talk about peace. I was in the area of the kibbutzim on my way to Gaza. I smell and I saw. You understand that every Israeli kid serving in the army, and not just kid, we talk about people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that was recruited and served in the Gaza area. Everybody was there. Can you imagine to yourself what it means to enter to a kibbutz after that attack? I was there like 3 weeks later, not immediately. I was still able to smell the blood, the burning bodies there, and you see the place. The place was like a paradise. And everybody in Israel is a state that the connection is so tight. There's no family in Israel that doesn't have family or friends, or each one of us was hurt. And the fact that they kidnapped men and women from their homes. Let's put aside the soldier for a second. But the ladies in her 80s, babies 2, 3, 1 years old, as a merchandise to you're talking with me about peace. You will hear again and again from the young generation in Israel. This is what you want? Can you imagine to yourself, I was a peace activist. I am still thinking, dreaming, yearning for peace, but what type of a state you want to give them? And this is a question that your kids need to ask themselves when they go in the streets in New York or Los Angeles, everywhere in the world, in Europe. Free Palestine. What type of a Palestine we will get? A state that women needs to cover her face. Women are not count. Where Sharia law is the law. When they still, in their charter, are looking for the destruction of the state of Israel, and they see you and us Jews as monkeys, this is what they teach the kids. Go and see the books. So, Israel after October 7 is not the same country. Think about the impact to the young generation in Israel. I'll give you 2 examples. Well, let's start with one. I have a guy in my community that fought in Gaza. In a certain point, and you can imagine to yourself that the war in Gaza is complicated. It's not a regular war. It's not army against army. It's not soldier war uniform against soldier war uniforms. It's, from every corner, every window, every suit, every car, you can be killed. It's not a fair game. They are under mosque and hospitals and whatever. And The kid is 19 years old. He's in Gaza. At one point, when we are talking about almost a year after the war started, he was asked by his commander, not him, the unit asked by the commander to take one of the Palestinians that they captured, and he's a terrorist. They know, they captured him with weapons. They asked him to take the Palestinian as a human shield and enter to a place where they thought that terrorists are sitting and protect themselves. And he said no, because it's against the government, against the army regulation, and he felt that it's not done. In open a huge debate between the commander and the kid. And you can imagine to yourself the situation. This is during a fight. It's not in a classroom in University of UCLA or Harvard or Yale. This is during the fight when people are shooting on you. Developed a debate, and the guy there, the commander says, what do you want me to find myself going to your mother and explain why you are dead? What do you want me to go to the mother of your friend, to the squad, and tell why he died because you didn't want or you don't want to use this? Can you imagine to yourself the type of a moral question? And on top of that, add to the fact that we are living during almost 2 years under daily attacks. And most of them are not reported in the media. Most of them are not reported in the media. Most of the American doesn't understand what happened to Tel Aviv after the attacks from Yemen and Iran. I don't know if you went with the, look, there were neighborhood in Tel Aviv that, you see the whole block disappeared. There are thousands of apartments in Tel Aviv that was hurt, thousands. What is going on? Show me another state in the world that there's a other state that says, we will destroy you. And the United Nations lives like, and more than that, in the United Nations, Iran created all those mess, is elected to be in the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations, or in the Women Commission of the United. Can you imagine to yourself how the Israelis sees that? The media, the world media, killed us. And you cannot fight the media. The news doesn't come anymore through New York Times or it comes from kids in the internet. Hospital was bombed. Israel killed 500 people. You remember that, the beginning of the war? I was watching that in television. My daughter said, that can't happen. A hole like this cannot kill how come that 500 people were in the hole? How can you count 500 people, check the CNN and BBC announced the 500 people death less than 20 minutes then the bomb fell. How can you count 500 dead people in a bomb? You know, it's not I shoot you and there's a hole in your heart. Bomb, you know, you are part here and part there. How can you count 500 people? And nobody asks questions. How you do that? What happened? Israel is in a certain way a country like, you don't go immediately with, we have to check that. And we checked that and we discovered not just that it was not fire from an Israeli soldiers. We decided to release to the world the conversation with two Palestinians talking about how it was done, what a mistake we did, and how we'll cover it. And the world is eating that. But I see the change. You know, you didn't probably pay attention to that. But the other day, like 2-3 days ago, the BBC that killed Israel, BBC played anti-Semitic role during this war. They made a major mistake. They play with tapes that Donald Trump, your president, said something, and they play with they arrange and create a scene that is really a fake scene. And they understood very well that England will get the hit as Canada had the hit. And they released immediately the whole story that was investigated in the last few months, but nobody released it. The bad attitude, immoral attitude of the leadership of the BBC. They fired the president and the chief of the news department. Why didn't do that a week before Donald Trump, or 2 weeks, or 2 months, or 3 months? They used to kill us, and they felt well and good with that. I can't see that unless I see anti-Semitism. And it's so simple in the world. You know, my daughter brought her boyfriend from England to Israel. First time in his life. I'm talking about years ago. We were in the Jerusalem promenade. There was a terrorist attack there. We were not there. I mean, we're a few hundred meters from the place. Guys that went out from a bus to see the view of Jerusalem were stopped by 2 terrorists that were there. By coincidence, soldiers were there, opened fire, killed the 2 people. After many people were wounded, I think even dramatically. And a day later, the guy brought me the news from England. You know, he did the Guardian, a major newspaper. It's like the Los Angeles Times, a big newspaper in England. The headline: 2 Palestinians were killed in Jerusalem. This is the headline. 90% doesn't read any more than that. You don't go to the details unless it's really 2 Palestinians were killed. Who killed them? Of course, the Israelis killed 2 Palestinians in Jerusalem. This is the story. And see what campaign was done to destroy the name of Israel in the story of starvation in Gaza. Show me another state in the world that brought food to the enemies during the war. During the war, it's not after the war, it's not Marshall Plan. During the war itself, not just food, oil. Oil is part of what they need in order to send the rockets to Tel Aviv. We had one agreement with them. We'll give you food, you'll bring food and medicine to our hostages. In one of the Israeli attack on Gaza, they found a basement with the whole medicine that was, the package of medicine that were prepared to the people. Don't forget that we had people in the 70s and 80s in captivity. Each one of them, sugar, blood, pressure, or whatever, each one of them got his medicine from Israel. They even didn't bother to give them that. And the war, oh. Go back to see the reports of the United Nations. Starvation, hundreds of people will. How many people really died from starvation in Gaza? Go and see the picture, not the propaganda of Hamas is playing, but the stuff that comes from the internet, the Facebook of the people in Gaza themselves. You can see parties, you can see events. I'm not saying that the situation in Gaza is easy. The destruction is enormous. It's enormous. But they started the war. I would like to say a few words from an optimistic point of view. And then I would be very happy to answer any question or disagreement or whatever. I see the positive side of the last few weeks. It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, I saw the Middle East, I understand the Middle East. Sometimes I feel I understand it better than most of the commentators that I see, the CNN or the media here. And I'll start by saying, don't forget, probably part of you remember, that in 73 Israel had a major war. That war in 73 was a real danger for the state of Israel. At a certain point, I don't know if it's true, but the rumors, the talks, says that Moshe Dayan offered Golda Meir to use the weapon of, the last results, the last option. The feeling then was that we are very close to a disaster. We survived the war. We won the war. Egypt found herself with an Israeli army, holding the third army of Egypt as hostages, 101 kilometers from Cairo, a few kilometers from Damascus. This is the end of the war. And they understood very well that enough is enough. Don't forget that 4 years later, Israel signed a peace agreement with Egypt. Not because we were nice or they nice, so they understood that they need to go out from this circle of violence. Don't forget that this agreement survived so many wars, including the last one. Israel and Egypt are not like, Germany and Czech Republic or Poland, okay? But we live like neighbors that doesn't like each other, but doesn't fight each other. I see that the war ended in a way that people didn't see the results of it. The results is not just Gaza. The results was what happened in Lebanon. In a week, Israel destroyed most of the capability of Hamas. This is the war that Israel prepares itself to do. I know that it captured the imagination of the world for a day or two, but then they returned to talk about Gaza. The way that Israel wounded few hundreds activists and soldiers and commanders of Hezbollah. Can you imagine to yourself how done, how much preparation needs to locate each one of those people and create this and later the ability to kill not just Hassan Nasrallah, but his successor and another successor and another. Can you imagine to yourself what we did in Iran? Partly with the help of the United States, but most of the activities was done by Israelis that knew how to kill Hamas leader in the center of Iran, hit the house, the building that he was staying there, and not the whole, just the bed that he, can you imagine to yourself how much we prepare to this type of a war? They understand that. Europeans and many Americans does not understand what happened. The Middle East understand very well. We have to get out from this circle of violence. I don't know if you heard that. The other day, the president of Syria, our big enemy, was in the White House. When he got out, people asked him, what about Israel? He says, we have direct talks to the Israelis. He used the word direct talk to the Israelis. Can you imagine to yourself that? And when he say direct talks, it's very interesting. We're talking to the Israelis not through the Americans or the Europeans. We talk directly to the Israelis. He knew what he's saying. We are now in a process that Arab countries understood that the circle of violence needs to end. And this is why 22 Arab countries, you heard that from the Knesset member, the head of the Arabs in Israel, 22 Arab countries sat together, the Arab League, and decided that they need to dismantle Hamas and destroy and to make sure that Iran won't raise her voice and present place in the Middle East. It's threat to the Middle East. And I think that we have right now an option. And there's another major event that happened and developed through the last few weeks. From an Israeli perspective, the return of almost the last hostages. We still have 2 or 3 people there, but wow, they are at home. And for us, we couldn't start the healing without having even the people that are dead. I was asked by Americans, Rabbi Mati, that visit us, why you care so much about the Israelis? I mean, we left in Vietnam 1,500, something like this. I went to check. I don't remember the exact number. Yeah, you left in Vietnam 1,005, some kind of a. This is Israel. This is Jewish people that doesn't leave people. Every Israeli could give you the list of the people that were hostages. In every school, in every working place, in every synagogue, every Israeli will know the name Gilad Shalit and Ron Arad. And we couldn't start the healing without returning the hostages, A. B, as part of the negotiation and the agreement, the involvement of President Trump was very interesting. I don't know about your opinion about the president. I don't want to talk about American politics. I can understand what you think. Keep it outside of this conversation. But in our issue, he did something very, very interesting. First, he started to talk with Hamas from a perspective of, guys, I'm the big guy in the neighborhood. I can eat you. If not, I will do something else. I will give the Israelis the ability to eat you. And they understood it very well. The story about the operation in Gaza that ended a few weeks ago was, a poker game. Who will blink first? The Israelis brought a lot of soldiers. They were going again to Gaza. Trump says, if you are not going to release the hostages, I will give them the opportunity, and hell will happen. They understood what every person in the Middle East understands very well, what power means. If you are powerless or you are weak, we can enter into your country and we can enter your kibbutzim and kill people and kidnap them. And I'm telling you, what happened to Gaza, the destruction of almost many parts of Gaza, lives in the eyes of the people in the Middle East a certain picture. Those Israelis are crazy. You have to be very careful dealing with them. And what do you do when you don't deal with your neighbors in Hamas way? You look for a way out. And you look left and right and you see Sadat. In 77, 78, he did the deal with Israel and he opened the door to get an American support. Can you imagine yourself? Egypt gets until today $2.5 billion every year from the United States. What it means to Egypt that doesn't have money to feed their people? I think that people in the Middle East started to think in those terms. And another issue is part of this agreement that was signed by all of the Arab countries except Iran and those organizations, crazy organization, is that the agreement will lead to a certain or should I say translation, a certain degree of retzinut, how should I say?
Autonomy?
To an Arab, to a Palestinian state. And Netanyahu signed that agreement. So when Trump was asked, he said, there will be a Palestinian state. And he said, what many Israelis feel. And they talk about it, but for a while it was, out of our agenda. Palestinian state is not for Palestinians. Yes, of course, but it's for our own sake. We don't want to build a country that will have their 8 million Jews and 8 million Palestinians. A country that is one from the river to the sea. We want to divide the country from the river to the sea, as United Nations decision was done in 47, partition. And right now, this partition looks more than many years ago, seriously, on the table. It will take time. It won't happen tomorrow. The process was voted today, the United Nations. I don't know if you pay attention to that. The United Nations approved this agreement, which means America and Europe is now building an army, not American soldiers from Muslim countries that will come and work in Gaza. Let's hope that they will be able to dismantle Hamas with the help of Palestinians. And after years that we'll see that it works, we'll go to the territories, Judea and Samaria. Israel won't give up Jewish settlements there, not the big ones. Gush Etzion and others, that will stay Jewish places. But part of the small settlements run by crazy Jewish settlers, I'm telling you, crazy Jewish settlers, will be dismantled. And somebody asked me today how they will do that. I said, so simple. Go back to 2005 and see what Israel did when they go out from Gaza. They sent the Israeli army, and one day took the people on the car and brought them back to Israel. And not just them, even the body from the graves, they collect and brought back to Israeli cemeteries. We know how to do that. The Middle East, and especially we as Jews, needs peace. We want prosperity. We want to live a quiet life. We had a terrible years. We pay a heavy price. And we built a country or avoid those pogroms and those. This pogrom taught us that we need to be strong, smart, and it didn't stop us, I think, from yearning for peace and building the peace process that is, I think, ahead of us. I talk too much. Questions, or Rabbi, please.
Thank you. So before we open it up, I was wondering, so actually I have two questions which are interconnected. So first question for me is, what's the role of Reform Judaism, of making sure that, within the Israeli society, this, this way of what I call like a pragmatic peace, succeeds, because we know that, the Israeli society has many factions, and there's factions of, of Ben Gvir and Smotrich who will not exactly, to my mind, representing the, as you said, crazy settlers. They will not exactly be in a place of making choices that on a grand geopolitical level could bring peace, but as long as they don't satisfy all their needs, they're not willing to compromise. So how Reform Judaism in Israel acts to make sure that that this pragmatic plan for peace succeeds. So that's one thing. And the other, I guess the second question is a question for us: how can we best support you? Because I feel that that very often when people say I stand with Israel, that is a great sentiment, and I love it on a personal level as a brother of of a Tel Avivi who was so close to the houses got destroyed, but also it's a bit empty because when we say I stand with Israel, we need to ask ourselves what vision of Israel do we want to support? And I don't want to be a Polish-born Jew living in Southern California who says, oh, support this and this Israel. I'd much rather say, I trust the judgment of my Israeli Reform colleagues who represent the same values and the same movement, who will tell me what organizations, causes, vision of Israel we want to support. So the questions are really connected. Like, what should we support? What is your vision as a Reform movement? And personally, as one of the most senior rabbis of the Reform movement.
It's a very good and important question. Look, tonight, which means yesterday in your terms, there was a Jewish pogrom that was done in the territories. I don't know if you heard that, maybe you'll see that in the press. It's terrible. The settlers did something that I can't call any other way than a Jewish pogrom. I think it happens, by the way, because they understood that Israel going to a different direction than their direction. I think that they fear that the peace that I'm talking about and doesn't seen yet by American commentators is about to happen, and I understand that they need to stop it as they stop the Oslo Accord by killing Yigal Amir, by doing so many demonstrations, and we have a tough war in Israel, within the Israeli society. And it will be very tough. It's not a television fight, it's really a fight, and I'm telling you, it won't be easy. We need in Israel to give to the majority of the Israelis, where are secular Jews or traditional Jews, a different perspective about what is Judaism. For example, Judaism is not going to an Arab village and to destroy a house or burn a car or hit civilians, and you don't do that. This is not Jewish. Ben Gvir and Smotrich, this is not Jewish. But you know and you understand that very well that in Israel, most of the Israelis grew up without understanding that there's another Jewish way. Because what they got from the Israeli establishment is just the Orthodox way. And you ask always why. The question is, the answer is very simple. Most of the Israelis grew up in places without democracy, without pluralism. As I told you earlier, our voice was not there. We can blame ourselves that we did not understood what will be the role of Jewish state in the Jewish life. And I'm telling you, the role of a Jewish state is important to your life. You like it, you don't like it. The way that Israel deals with her problems affect you and affect the ability of your kids and grandchildren to be part of this Jewish world. I want to build a different Jewish world than the settlers. And my people, my friends, my colleagues here in America, they don't help me, don't help us to create a reform Jewish presence in Israel. I'm telling you that the budget of the reform movement in Israel is less than a budget of average reform big congregation in America. How can you build a real presence in Israel? Can you imagine to yourself that synagogue next door, your competition, is sponsored by the government, the rabbi gets his salary from the government, the maintenance not done by the government? How can I compete in Tel Aviv with the Orthodox shuls there? Where's the help of the reform movement? How many Jews that aligns with the reform movement lives in Los Angeles area? How many synagogues? How many of them support Reform Judaism in Israel? Really support. So don't buy ambulance for Magen David, because this is the government responsibility in Israel. And the government is very happy that you buy ambulance, because that releases the money to give to the settlers as part of the coalition agreement. You understand? Don't buy ambulance. Don't support organization that does not support the reform movement in Israel. And I can give you a list. I won't do that today. But many organizations in the American Jewish life, ask them whenever they come to talk to you, to Wilshire Boulevard Synagogue, what did you do for the reform movement in Israel? You're allowed to a reform rabbi to do a wedding in your hospital or in your center. You recognize that reform rabbi is a rabbi. I know that you're coming to take the donation, the support, the grants, but how much you recognize your rabbis in your synagogue, your way of life. So I think that this is very important. I think that every congregation in America needs to make a very clear decision. We support the people of the state of Israel, and we support building Reform Judaism in Israel seriously. We don't need to support the state, when you call it the government, or the prime minister. Part of you, I understand, I believe, does not support Trump as a president, or Biden before that. Netanyahu and his government is not the state of Israel. You have to understand that. And you have to help us to bring the different voice. By the way, Netanyahu in the good days was very close to the Reform movement. I don't know if you know that. His second wife, now he has the third one. This is the tough one. Now it's the tough lady. The second wife, American lady, was converted in a Reform way. And the second marriage, he did it with a Reform rabbi. And the way that he lives, I'm telling you, he is not an Orthodox and he's not a Masorti, traditional Jew. He is very liberal in his way that he, take the list of restaurants that we paid for him in Israel and in America, and you see that he eats not kosher restaurants So you need to help us to create this atmosphere that Reform Judaism has a strong presence in Israel. I go quite often to the mayor of Tel Aviv and says, let's do this, let's do that, and he always says to me, why you come to me? I have to deal with poverty and problems, and you have your own community in America. They support so many organizations. Why they don't support you? What can I tell him? And he's right. The war started 2 years ago. I'm running, Mati, the large Reform synagogue, as you know, the large Reform synagogue in Israel. We work with so many people. Since the war started, the Reform movement did a major campaign to raise funds. How much I saw? As the guy that runs the large synagogue in Israel, you don't want to hear that. We got a few thousand shekels to support families that lost their homes. Nothing for activities, nothing to close the gap that the guest house that was closed brought. We hosted refugees from Gaza and from the north. Nothing through the Reform movement. I can cry, it won't help me, but you can change it. Take a decision as a congregation. We are adopting a congregation in Israel. I don't have a sister or brother congregation in Israel. We are supported by certain synagogues, but we never built a real relationship with a synagogue in America. Today we discovered that we need you, not just for the funds, but for the connection. We worried in Israel about what happened to the Jewish community in the world. For years, what happened in the Jewish world was not interesting to the Israelis. Now we understand that we're in the same boat. When people are demonstrating next to a synagogue, when they do anti-Semitic graffitis, and it hurts the heart of the Israelis more than they ever dreamed about it before. So let's align in a way that we can call each other brothers and sisters in a real way. And I think you have the power. You don't understand how much your involvement can change the face of the state of Israel and the nature of the people. They just need to hear, Mati, the voice from our movement. I said in one article many, many years ago, when Bet Daniel was open, my dream is that we put another synagogue, open the door, and people will come. And I saw that in Bet Daniel. We opened the synagogue, 30 families. They put a rabbi, and people started to come. And the influence of Bet Daniel is enormous on Israeli society. We have Knesset members that grew up at Bet Daniel. We have influence, we have voice that comes, my involvement, I write, I talk, television, radio, it's an answer to those settlers. Not enough. We need you more. So, again, I try to wrap it in a way that, guys, your turn, or Rabbi.
I think let's open it up to our amazing public. So if anybody has questions or comments, please. There's a second mic, so not all at once. Henry.
Yeah.
In Ra'anana, are you familiar with the Reform Synagogue there, the Samueli endowed synagogue?
I had the privilege to be present in when Mr. Samueli was brought to Ra'anana. He got from us two options to build a synagogue, and he chose Ra'anana, and it was unbelievable the way that he did the business there. Yeah, built a beautiful synagogue.
So some of us probably know that we were at one time brother and sister with that synagogue through our previous rabbi. We've dropped the ball, but we did have a student exchange, and I think that would be an idea to start our commitment, restart our commitment. But as our whole community here in Orange County, I mean, I don't want to take credit for Samueli's millions that he donated there, but our community has been generous to that extent.
Yeah, I can offer my involvement, our involvement. Bet Daniel is a very different congregation than many other synagogues in Israel. The modernity, the new world can open new horizons for us for cooperation. We did a conversation today. We can do that in internet, in Zoom next time. Can you imagine to yourself learning together, talking to each other, you coming to visit, not just in a bus, oh, this is the Wailing Wall, and this is Jerusalem, and this is Tel Aviv, but sitting together. You're there. Can you tell them how the experience of Friday night at Bet Daniel was?
No, it's always wonderful to support our synagogues, and I do know that we do have a large growing number of Reform synagogues in Israel right now. How many are we at? 34 or 50?
Yeah, growing number.
And I saw Rabbi Azari at the HUC Jerusalem ordination just 2 weeks ago, and I think just ordained the 134th.
Half of them are not working with the movement because there's no job, and many of them working here in the United States because it's, and we need to make sure that the new rabbis will have a work. And the fact that we have 230 converts or 40 converts this year is a failure, because I can tell you, we can have 1,000, but the question is who will fund the class, who will find it, and I'm crying visiting here synagogues and congregation, says help us, we'll help the movement. You help the movement. I didn't see the $1 million that was raised after the war in Tel Aviv. Nothing was invested seriously in Tel Aviv. So I believe that community to community, rabbi to rabbi, congregation to congregation, and I can talk on behalf of Bet Daniel. I offer you a partnership. I drove here today not just to give a talk, but to build maybe a long-term relationship. We can send a rabbi. We have few rabbis working part-time. They would love to work more than that. Adopt them, help them to grow, help them to build their own communities in Israel. And we can give you. We created a program. I'll give that to your rabbi. We call it Kesher Le'atid, future connection. We are now offering that to communities. And we host the rabbi and 21 other rabbis, not because we want to do publicity for Israel. We want to build a connection with our community. So take advantage from a crazy community in Israel that instead of building herself, they want to be part of the world. I can solve the problems of Bet Daniel very easily. It says, We don't host anymore birthright kids and nifty kids in our guest house. We will host when tourists will start coming, tourists from France, the guest house. They won't kill the guest house as the kids are doing parties in the building. You know, can you imagine to yourself how a building looks after kids from America, 20 years old, are doing summer there? We'll have a couple from Paris. They will go to the beach. They will sleep a lot. They will enjoy their life. They will go to the market in Jaffa. I will get the building clean, and we get double price, and they will say thank you for the ability to be in Tel Aviv in such a price. No, we don't do that. So I want to build that strong relationship toward the future. So for your comment, we are here. We're here. I'm here to try to do something bigger than just this conversation this evening.
So you're offering us, you're presenting to us a different channel for our support. I want you to know, though, that in Orange County, the Federation had an emergency drive, and we raised, I think, around $4 million. Was it that, Elise? Does that sound about right? $4 million. It went to everybody. It did not go to the left wing, the right wing. It went to people who needed that money. I saw those grants. I had something to do with allocating that money. And I think you're not being fair to us. I think that, yes, that you're offering us an opportunity, and I think we should take it because it's going person to person, Reform Jew to Reform Jew makes a lot of sense. But we have stepped up.
I apologize if it sounds that I don't respect the efforts that was done by the Federation here or any other federation. But I'm telling you, from my perspective as a Reform rabbi in Israel, I didn't see it. And yes, a lot is needed in Israel. You need to buy probably 50, 100 new ambulances after the war. You need to do A, B, C, but we have other responsibilities to build our own movement in Israel. And every dollar that doesn't, every dollar that releases the government from responsibility goes later to the settlers. I don't know if you understand what happened in the last few months in Israel, because Netanyahu wants to keep his government. He lost his coalition, by the way. Netanyahu doesn't have a full coalition now. And he needs to buy, for every vote, his former coalition members. You understand how much money went there in the last few weeks? And yes, from where do you get the money? You go to the Jewish agency, you go to Keren Kayemet, it says, give us the Jewish agency property, the Keren Kayemet property. Yes, go to the uncle in America, and he will buy. Why Israel needs a donor that brings $100 million to repair the hospital in Beersheba that was hurt, and not the Israeli government? You understand that Iranian attacked the hospital and destroyed the hospital. The hospital, it's a huge damage. Israel has reserve of billions of dollars. Why it's not the government? I'll tell you why. Part of the money will go to those sources. How much money was allocated to the minister by the name of Orit Struk? Check. Hundreds of millions. To keep the coalition. So don't release the government from responsibility, and make sure that the Federation will ask the question always, not just what we do for Israel and poor people, but what we do in Israel to people like us, to bring our voice and our presence in Israel.
Rabbi Meir, I think that, so I find it very inspirational, because what you happen to be saying is actually something that we do here domestically, but we haven't done much when it comes to Israel. So each and every one of you, when you give money to American nonprofits, you are I know you, and that's one of the things that I most appreciate about you. You give money to causes that you believe in, and you analyze, the causes that you believe in, and that's a wonderful thing. But at the same time, when Israel is at play, because it's further away, because we're not as aware of what's going on, it's easier for us to go for a middleman to address these issues and hope that money will find its way somewhere. And I think what you seem to advocate is, scrutinize where our money goes when it comes to Israel just as carefully, and and give directly to the causes that match our values, just like we do it here, right?
Yeah. I sat the other day with a guy in the city Sarasota in Florida. He is doing a wonderful job. I know him for like 20 years. He's doing a wonderful job. He's a tennis player, and he builds tennis centers in Israel. He's doing a wonderful job. It's great. And I admire the work that he's doing. But he always says to me, it's very important, not just the Israelis who play tennis and Jews and Arabs will play together and so on and so forth. It's very important that in Israel we'll have a Reform synagogue as your synagogue. I visit your synagogue, and I understand the nature of the work that you do, and I want to do that. So he gives money to the center tennis. At the same time, he gives money to the Reform movement in Israel. So continue to do the work that you do. Don't neglect the federation, by the way, is very important. The unity of the Jewish people, the fact that in the Jewish agency, people from all streams, all walk of life are sitting, it's a major issue. Major issue. By the way, the Likud party just destroyed that when they offered the son of Netanyahu a position, and right now I have doubts if it will be somehow will be arranged.
That's loud.
So I'm telling you that federation is great and important. The Jewish agency is important, but somehow we neglected the work to build Reform Judaism in Israel. Yes.
I have been holding the microphone for a while. I don't have a question for you, Rabbi. I have a comment on what he said. But I think it is a little disingenuous and kind of like characteristic of the United States view on things, where you can have someone in front of you, like your rabbi, saying, I know you have all given and donated to things, but it has not reached us where we need it, to then bring it up and say, oh, but look, I have donated to all of these things. And like Rabbi Mati said, it is a lot more important, since it is in a different country and across oceans, to specifically make sure that you're giving money to the programs that you want to give it to, as opposed to larger donation funds. You can raise $4 million, and that's great, but if someone is in front of you saying, I did not see any of that $4 million that you raised, it is less than helpful to say, but I raised $4 million.
I think that it's there. Well,
I think
I want to say that you asked.
We just had an election for Artsa. That money is supposed to go directly to the Reform movement in Israel. That was what I assumed, that my vote would go to support the Reform movement. Is that true, since you were the one that was my partner in?
I will take the microphone
Here.
for a minute. Elaine is referring to those of you who voted in the World Zionist Congress for the Vote Reform Artsenu new slate. That agreement has been really positive for us, and what we voted for was seats in the agencies that Rabbi Azari is talking about, the Karen Kayemet, which is the Jewish National Fund, and the Israel Agency, Jaffe, which brings us our ambassadors. Those people will vote, and the money will be divided, and some of it will go to the Reform movement, not coming from the government, coming from the World Zionist Congress. So it's a percentage based on the number of votes we got. Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So
Yeah.
we worked very hard to vote in the World Zionist Congress, and hopefully,
Yeah,
and we know some of that money will filter down to our Reform
Part
congregations.
of what we have is money that comes from Keren Kayemet and the Jewish Agency. It's through the election. I'm very much worried the fact that out of the 1.3 million Reform Jews in America, less than 68,000 went to vote or bothered to vote, which means we have better results from the last election, but in the end of the day, we have less power than what we had until now. Raise a lot of questions about our movement in America and the involvement of rabbis and lay leaders. You did probably a good job, but not all of us did a good job. But don't forget that the settlers and the right wing in Israel brings a lot of money from here. A lot of money. Take an organization by the name Kohelet and check what their investment in Israel was. It's enormous. The whole process of trying to change the face of the state of Israel before the war, what bothers so many Israelis for a year, comes from money from United States. Who feed the settlers except the government? Who helped them? No, I can give you names. Go and check. Moscovich, Erwin Moscovich, for example. Check the name. How many millions? Not millions. Dozens and dozens, if not more than that. Where's the liberal Jews from America? We talk a lot. How much we invest in Israel, in our movement. I can tell you, I told you earlier, lesser budget than one of the top, not 10, 20 or 30 Reform synagogues in America. One synagogue. How can you build Reform president in Israel and this is the investment? You can't. And I'm calling you to do that. You know, take a role and force our movement to be part of the process. Do better. And not because we need it in Israel. We need it. It's partially because you need it as well. Because otherwise Israel will be a different country. I want to say something before we go to other questions, because I know that part of you needs to leave and so on. I have a very short brochure about Beit Daniel, who we are. You can register and get the newsletters that we send the staff. We do a lot of activities for people from all over the world. We do ambassador circle. We have conversation with important Israelis. We just had Nathan Sharansky and Tzipi Livni last year. Journalists, generals, people that talk. We had a conversation. We publish from time to time articles. We have a resource bank. And yes, you can support us through 501, which means tax deductible here in the United States, direct to Beit Daniel. And the money goes 100% for Reform activities, and not overhead here and not over there. It's goes directly to Reform activities in Israel. So be our ambassador. So here you can have it, you can take it. Rabbi, I don't want to.
One thing that I find is a problem is we don't get enough of Reform information. And one thing I read a lot of is, well, there's that. I get that. And also Hiddush write-ups from Rabbi Yuri Regev. And we should be publishing that probably even in our documents to everybody to find out. When I read these, what scares me is the most discriminated group in Israel are non-Orthodox Jews. Yeah. And whether it's Reform or conservative, we're a non-entity from the government's perspective. And I'm always fascinated when I'm reading Yuri Regev's articles about all the mishigas that goes on in trying to take over the control of Judaism by the far right, and his attempts to fight that.
I agree with you. We have to be more uniform. You need to know a little bit more. But I will take you for a positive perspective. And I am here not just to bring the bad side, but the positive and optimistic, as I said earlier, about the process in Israel. Bet Daniel, as I told you earlier, fought to get the land to build a synagogue for almost 20 years. The second building, we got the land for free and $2.5 million from the city that supported us. We have today 4 other congregations. Each one of them works in a city building. So we got buildings from the city of Tel Aviv. We went to the court and fought the government. And the government forced by the court to recognize our converts as Jews. And they are forced to support our conversion program, not as they support the Orthodox program, but Bet Daniel is getting like $30,000 a year to support our conversion program. And can you imagine to yourself, ultra-Orthodox supervisors are coming to supervise reform curriculum it's so strange. So there's a positive side. Not just everything is wrong. I think that Israel is more, in a certain way, more liberal and more progressive than 40, 50 years ago. And we're in the right, from my understanding, the right direction. I know that the world changed a little bit, took it to the right a little bit. We are going to see the change in very short. And we need your involvement to be part of it. So I agree with you. You need to get more. The best way that I know is people to people, congregation to congregation, rabbi to rabbi. If your congregation will make a decision to do that, it's so simple. You get the news from a certain place, and you see the picture. And the picture that we send from Bet Daniel is a broad perspective, because we are dealing with so much. We see your kids, we see your rabbis, we see converts, we see so many weddings, we see the secular Israeli, you see the Israeli life. And yes, I hope that you will be more informed. I'm offering you, that partnership to your community. I think that you hold the microphone.
Hi. I see in the United States our biggest challenge is secularism, that people just are dropping out of Judaism, Christianity. Soccer seems so much more important on a weekend. And so how are you drawing people, and where are you drawing them from? Are they secular people that are now suddenly, inspirationally coming toward Judaism? Who are these converts? Like, how are you getting people, inspired to actually engage? Because I think that's the biggest challenge we're facing here.
I think it's the same challenge in Israel in a certain way, but a different challenge from another perspective. Because in Israel, the feeling for many Israelis is that we don't need the Jewish embassy, which is the synagogue, to feel Jewish. I don't need to come to the synagogue in Purim to feel that it's Purim. The street is Purim. I don't need to come to the synagogue to hear about the weekly parasha from the rabbi. Every television channel, every newspaper, will have some kind of a column about the weekly parasha. I don't need to come to the synagogue and be a member in order to be buried as a Jewish, or to have a wedding and to educate my kid, because I send my kids to national school, which is a Jewish school. They learn about the holidays, they learn about, by the way, an Israeli kid, when he finished high school at 18 years old, knows more Bible and Talmud than average student of the Hebrew in college in the first or maybe the second year. So I don't need that. So people are coming to a synagogue from a different reasons in Israel, more spirituality and more, and we develop a very different type of synagogue. And I believe that years from now, our synagogue, the model of our synagogue, will be a model of many synagogues in America. It's a synagogue that does not stand on the concept of membership. Although we have members, we have like 300 families, but you can imagine to yourself that 300 families does not produce 250 bar mitzvot a year. So we develop a concept that you can be a member and you can come to the synagogue, and we don't call it a synagogue, it's a center, and you can buy service as you need it or as you wish. So you can come and study. There are people that study with me for 20 years, but they're not members. They pay every time that they come to Bible lesson or to I don't know what, okay? So it's a different concept. It makes it easy to people to feel connected to the center. And I can talk for a long time about the concept. I hope the Reform rabbis in America will learn that. The synagogue that I know in America that will be like magnet, like I don't know, Central Synagogue in New York. I was there 2 weeks ago. Spoke Friday. You have 1,000 people there. They broadcast the service. 5,000, 6,000 people see the service, or maybe more. They have the power, but most of the synagogues will have to change the way that they conduct the business. And we somehow managed to find the solution. By the way, it was not work like this earlier. Our synagogue served new immigrants that came from America. They spoke English. The service was in English. We had to change ourselves, and you don't. Most of the synagogue in America that I see doesn't change the way that they conduct business for the last 50 years, or even more than that. And this is, I think, part of the secret of Beit Daniel. We work a little bit different. So this is how people are coming because they want to be together, they want to be Jewish, they want to feel Jewish, not as a Jewish embassy, but to touch it, I think that yes, the obstacle that we have or the challenge is the same secularism, the same. What do you think? Israelis doesn't go to soccer game, doesn't go to mall, doesn't go, especially in Tel Aviv. You have a beautiful beach, restaurants, coffee shop. Who wants to come to the synagogue Saturday morning? It's a challenge. So you have to concept, and we had a huge debate in our community, for example, about Zoom. Should we broadcast services on Zoom, take out people from the synagogue? We discovered that in a certain way, Zoom helps us. You don't need to take your clothes, to put your clothes and go to the car and drive and try to find us parking. In Israel, we don't have parking as you have. I hope that my car is not, washed away. But when I left it, but we don't have a parking. Just to find a parking in Tel Aviv, next to the park where we are. Who wants to do that? Suddenly we have a Zoom Shabbat morning service, Shabbat morning Torah study. 34 people easily come there. Half of them are not members. But we will be the synagogue for them. The same lady that comes every Shabbat to the Zoom conversation is the grandmother or the mother of a bar mitzvah boy or bar mitzvah girl. So I don't see her as a member, but she will call me and says, "Hey, Rabbi, you remember my daughter would like to have a bar mitzvah for her son." So this is you have to do that.
I think we could spend hours and hours more.
But I need to return to Los Angeles. It will take me 2 hours.
Los Angeles. We are so honored. It was such an inspirational evening, and I'll put it this way: I definitely think that there's a sense of connection to your community, and we would like to find out, what you're up to, and you gave us a lot of new ideas how we can better support Israel by supporting the Israeli reform movement, by putting our money where the values are, and by staying informed and closely informed. And on this note, we say Toda Rabba, and maybe Beshanat Haba Betel Aviv, next year in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much.
I can promise you that in Tel Aviv we'll give you nice hospitality, as we give to the board of the college and to the rabbis. And I endorse you to be overseas member of Beit Daniel, support us, and visit us. And don't give up of Israel and the people of Israel. Not of all of us are Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and not even Netanyahu. So don't forget that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was so inspirational. And I know, it's just like, where are we?